Hey, thank you so much for tuning into this session with me, Dennis Esteban. I am a speaker, I am a business strategist, I am a branding coach, I am a philanthropist. I have done so many different things, right? But all of those things are what I do. But that's not really who I am, right? But in reality, I'm a husband, I'm a father, and I'm a son. And I'm a friend, and I hope that today I can be your friend and just help guide you along your journey. So I want to say again, thank you for tuning into this session with me. Now, I don't know exactly where you're tuning in from. Maybe you heard about me through the news on CBS or ABC or something like that, or maybe you recently were at a speaking engagement and I pointed you to this video. Wherever you're coming from, I hope that this time can really do one thing. I hope that this time with me can really inspire you. And what I mean inspire you, I mean inspire you to take action, right? I believe that there is a movement on the inside of you. I believe that there is not just so much more that you can do, but I believe that there is so much more that you can become. And I know, just like you and myself, we are on a journey. And I hope that this video can be kind of that piece of content or a moment in your life that one just shows you all that's possible, right? So with that being said, today I'm going to share a little bit about my story, how a Haitian immigrant who couldn't speak the language has now spoken all across the country, is now working on multiple businesses, is now writing a book and doing all of these things across the world. And really, when you look at my story, I'm supposed to be a statistic. I'm supposed to be a person that's not supposed to be here, right? And all of the odds were against me, but yet I'm not just surviving, but I'm thriving. And that's my hope for you today. My hope for you today is that you can hear something that might inspire you, that might give you some vision. One of my favorite quotes about vision says, "A vision for tomorrow helps you endure the hardships of today." And the truth about life for all of us is we're going to have those good days, but we're going to also have those bad days. We're going to have those uphill moments, but then we're also going to have those valley moments. And I don't know what point in your life you find yourself in right now. I'm just saying that, hey, I want to be your friend. I want to come in on this journey with you. I want to say something that might inspire you to take action. And I know that it's not really if you can do it. It's not when you will do it, but it's actually, do you want to do it? Do you have the courage enough to care, to take action, to make a move that will not only change your life, but change the life of the people around you? Well, before we start off, I want to say wherever you're watching from, just subscribe. If there's an email below, add your email in there, subscribe to what we're doing. My hope, my goal in life is just to inspire people to take action in their community. See, my story starts off in Haiti. And see, in Haiti, my family and I, we had a pretty good life for the most part. I remember, growing up, I went to a private school. We had drivers, we had money, we never went hungry. We had cooks, we had maids, we had pretty much everything we needed. But still, the country was a very unsafe country. Like, I remember times I would go to school, and I went to a really good, expensive school. I remember we would go to school, and every week we'd hear different shootings and stuff happening around us, and we would go on lockdown. So although we had everything that we needed, the environment that I was in wasn't conducive to who I could become. Right. So in search for opportunity, my parents decided that my mother, my sister, and myself, we would move from Haiti to the United States for opportunity. And yes, while the United States did bring about opportunity, it also brought about challenges, because you know that when you come into a new environment and you look different and you talk different, you dress different, people are going to treat you different. Now, here's what I didn't realize at the time. I didn't realize that it was not a shame to be different. I didn't realize that it wasn't that I was just different, it's that I was unique. And maybe you, as you're listening today, in your life, you felt different. You felt strange. I want to submit to you that you're not different, but you're unique. That if you stick your hand out right now and you turn it around and you see those little fingerprints, there is absolutely nobody, and yes, I mean nobody, there's absolutely nobody on this planet with your fingerprint. In fact, even if you had an identical twin, like listen to me say this, even if you had an identical twin, there is nobody with your thumbprint, nobody with a matching thumbprint like you. And I believe the fact that no one has your thumbprint, it's God's sign to you that you were created to leave an imprint on this earth that only you can leave. But now the question is, again, it's not if you, but it's more of, will you make a difference? Do you have the courage to make a difference? Will you step outside of your comfort zone so you can make a difference? See, again, growing up, I wasn't the most confident kid. I couldn't even speak the language. But the one thing is, over time, like, I was resilient. And maybe it's because of my background. Maybe it's because I was in an environment where we were constantly hearing shootings. Maybe it was the fact that when we were very young, when I was probably 4 or 5 years old, I can remember being held at gunpoint, right? And when I share my story with you, you're gonna hear that, like, there were all of these moments where I almost didn't make it. And maybe you can relate to that. Maybe in your life you've had several moments where you almost didn't make it. But if you are still here today, if you still have a pulse in your veins, I want to tell you that if you have a pulse, then you still have a purpose. Your story is not over. I don't care what they said to you. I don't care how they lied about you. I don't care the challenges you're going through. I don't care about the anxiety that's keeping you up at night. The best is still ahead. Yes, you're going through some trials. Yes, you're going through some difficulties. Yes, you're going through some challenges, but the best is ahead of you and it's not behind you. And can I submit this to you? In order for you to step into your destiny, you have to break up with your history. Now, when I share with you my story, I'm sharing with you my story not so I can go back and soak in it, not so I can go back and relive it, but I'm sharing with you my story so you can have the context to this content. The context that, again, the kid that could not speak the language has now spoken all across the world, and I have seen a movement take place in my life. So again, I came to this country. I wasn't able to speak the language. I can remember, like, there were times when I was walking to the bus stop and I had to practice how to say things like, "May I go to the restroom?" And I was scared to raise my hand in class because I was scared what people were going to think of me. I remember, because of my skin color growing up in the town that I grew up in, that when the lights would go off, kids would point and kids would make fun of my skin color because of how dark my complexion was. So I remember when I was younger, when I knew that they're about to play a presentation or something, I would try to do whatever I can. I would try to go to the bathroom or whatever. I try to do whatever I can to get outside of that environment because I didn't want to get made fun of, right? But through all of that, through all of those challenges, you could call it God, you can call it something supernatural, whatever you want to call it. Through all of that, I knew that there was so much that I can become. Like, I knew it. And here's the thing about me that you're going to find out. Like, I speak to you today not as a perfect person. I speak to you as a progressing person. I speak to you not as a person that has arrived, but I speak to you as a person that is on the journey. And that's what I'm trying to do today. I'm trying to bring you on to the journey. So, hey, in this video, I'm going to go a little long. I'm going to talk about a lot of things, but I want to encourage you to stick with me. In fact, I want you to take some notes down as I'm speaking and as I'm telling you these things. In fact, I've spoken across the country in many different stages. anywhere from the American Revolutionary Museum to Carnegie Hall to universities, you name it, to national television, CBS. I've spoken everywhere, a lot of places. And these people pay me thousands of dollars to speak. And just today, you're getting this content for free. And my goal again, I'm gonna go at it with everything that I got. So the only thing that I'm asking you is lean in, take some notes, because I really believe the next moments that we spend together can realign where you're headed, right? It can change your course. If you listen to these things and you put some of these things into practice, oh my goodness, the things that it can do for your life. And I'm gonna try to tell you as much just life advice. I'm going to try to give you as many nuggets as I can, things that took me a very long time to learn, but I'm going to try to reduce the time for you to learn these things. In fact, I also want to encourage you, as you're watching this video, share this video with somebody else, because here's what I know happens. When we do something in community, now we have accountability. Now, as we're going through this video, when you share it with somebody, you guys can have conversation about some of these things that I'm talking about. You can talk about some of the struggles that you're having in your own personal life, right? Where right now I may not be able to talk to you face to face. So again, 1, lean in. 2, find somebody else that you can share this content with, because I do believe from the bottom of my heart that it is going to impact you. So as you see, part of my story is I grew up in a very challenging space where, again, I didn't speak the language. I was made fun of my skin color. I was made fun of for the way that I talked, but yet still I knew that I could be so much more. I can become something great. And that was my determination my whole life. Like, I didn't want to just exist, but I wanted to live. I didn't just want to survive, but I wanted to thrive. And I grew up in a household where my mom, for most of her life, was a single mother, right? And it was just me, my sister, and my mom. And it was very tough not having a man around, not learning these things. But the one thing that I did correct in all my life, and I think it played a huge role in how I became the person I became, the one thing I did correct was I went and I sought a mentor. See, now you hear a lot of these gurus or these speakers talk about getting a mentor, paying for a coach. When I heard this, I was like, I don't really know if I'm about to pay somebody $1,000, $2,000, $3,000. Like, I don't really know if, like, one, I can't even do that, right? Like, I thought to myself, hey, I can't really do that. But there are people that I do know that are around me that I can get around them and I can see how they live. One of the quotes I learned when I was 16 was this quote of, your network will equal your net worth. Your network will equal your net worth. And that you will become like the 5 closest people you hang around. So as soon as I realized that I'm going to be like the 5 closest people I hang around, I had to let some people go. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you ain't got no money. You ain't got no money. You ain't got no money. I don't like how you do that. But in all seriousness, I had to realize that the quality of my life will be directly related to the quality of my relationships. So now my question for you is, as you look at your life today, right now, the 5 closest people you spend your time with, do you want to become like those people? Now, here's what you have to understand. These people might be nice people, unless you're hanging out with some robbers and some thieves and you need to get some new friends. But these people that you're around, they might be some very, very, very nice people. But the question is, are they people that are just good with you, but they're not necessarily good for you? So ask yourself, the people that I'm around, the people that I'm closest to, is that who I want to be, right? And if it's not, my encouragement to you is start looking for some new people to spend your time around. So growing up, although I had all of those challenges, the one thing that I did right is I found meaningful relationships. I got around some coaches. I got involved in a church where I was hanging out with the youth pastor. I was seeing what being a part of different families were like. And what would happen when I was what happened when I was young is because I had these different mentors, because I was a part of these different groups or teams or associations, is that because I got around these mentors and I always found some way to serve. So if you're asking yourself, okay, how do I get around these people? Well, one, you don't get around these people just trying to take. You have to identify a way for you to serve. So when I got around these people and I found some way to serve, even if it was the simplest thing like throwing out the trash or doing this or doing that, I found a way to serve. And what happened over time is I built relationships. Then what happened is they would invite me back over to their house. And when these people invited me over to their house, they would give me a meal. Now, this, if you know anything about my story, this did a lot for me, because later on, when I was in high school, I co-founded an organization called We Dine Together. And the idea of We Dine Together, when we started it, it was about that. It was this idea that relationships are built over the table. Part of my story is in my household growing up, we weren't the family that ate together every night. Now, in my family, me and my wife, we make it a priority that we're going to get around the table, or that we're going to get together every day somehow, right? We make it a priority. But growing up in my family, that wasn't a thing. So when these mentors would bring me around the table, I saw how relationships were truly built. And then another thing too is when I got around these people, they introduced me to more people. Now around the community, I started getting around mentors and leaders. And what happened for me was my mindset shift because I saw what was possible, right? Now, here's the thing that I want to get into. Most people aren't successful not because of who they are. Most people aren't successful or don't succeed because of who they think they're not. They don't succeed because they believe more in their limitation. And I believe the reason why you probably believe in your limitations so much is because your eyes just probably haven't been open to see all that's possible, right? I'm a person, I spend a lot of time researching. I spend a lot of time learning. I spend a lot of time watching YouTube videos about things. And what happens is when I watch these videos, when I'm consuming all of this content, what happens is now my mind is expanded, right? Anytime I get a new business idea or something new that I want to do, the first thing that I will always do is I'll hit up YouTube University. Like, you don't necessarily need to go spend $100,000 on a degree. Just check out YouTube University first, right? Now, hey, I'm not saying don't go to college. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is there is so much information available to you. There is more technology on your phone than the first ship that was sent to space, right? More technology on your phone. And so it's not necessarily about the phone, right? It's about how you use the phone. It's not a question of if you can make a difference. It's a question, will you make a difference? Do you have the courage to make a difference, right? That's what we're talking about here. So I would jump on YouTube University. I would learn all these different things. And what happens is every time I fill my mind with these different things, now my reality was no longer just a reality. I was able to dream of the type of person I want to become. So again, most people aren't successful not because of who they are. Most people aren't successful because of who they think they're not. And one of my goals today is just to inspire you. There was a study that was done, and they studied these kids. And I believe it was something along the lines of like most children up till the age of 3 or 4. They were operating at a genius level. Now, what happened is, again, they studied these kids throughout their life. So they studied them before their teens. They studied them in their 20s. They studied them in their 30s. And the older they get, the less geniuses they would find. Now, the question is, where did that geniusness go? Really, I believe that geniusness did not go anywhere. But what happened is, as they got into society, they were told of all of the things that they couldn't do. They were told of all of the type of person that they couldn't be. They started believing the lies that were being fed to them. and they let go of that childlike imagination. Like you know the imagination I'm talking about. I'm talking about when you can hold a hairbrush, and that hairbrush was a microphone. When you could hold a broom, and that broomstick was a flying instrument, right? Can you still have that childlike imagination that you can believe for the best? Now, I'm not telling you to just live in la la land, but what I'm telling you is you have to be able to accept your situation for what it is, but you have to also be expectant for what and who you can become. That's what I'm saying to you. I believe that there's greatness on the inside of you. I believe that there is more on the inside of you that you can even think or even fathom. But the question is not can you? It's not if you, it's will you, right? Like, will you step outside of your comfort zone? Will you do today what others won't do so you can have tomorrow what others won't have? And now let me bring this back full circle for you. The main issue in my story when I was young is that I was scared to be different. People called me different and they made fun of me. So I thought that different was wrong. But in reality, remember this. I'm bringing it back full circle. Remember this, that different just means that you are unique. Different just means that there is nobody on this planet with your thumbprint, because you have something only you were created to do. You have a designer, you have a manufacturer that made you to do something, to leave something on this earth. And again, it's not a question of can you, it's a question of will you make a difference? Will you step outside of your comfort zone? So again, my story, moved from Haiti, experienced the difficulties of living here, got around some mentors. Now what happened is when I got a new community, my mind started to change. I was going to people's houses. They were telling me the jobs that they had. Now my mind was open to new possibilities. My mind was open to the type of person that I can become. I don't have to do all the things that the other people were doing because I had a greater vision for my life. And although some days were challenging, although some people still made fun of me, because I had a vision for tomorrow, I was able to endure today. So my question, if we can stop right here, is what is your vision? What can you do? Who can you become? Take away all of the limitations for a second. Or not even who can you become, it's who do you want to become? And when I say who do you want to become, I'm not just talking about what do you want to do. I'm talking about your purpose. Quickly, if I can define purpose for you, I don't believe that purpose is what you do. I believe purpose is the reason in which something is created. Now, something can serve multiple purposes. It can do multiple things. And see, that's another area where a lot of people get stuck because they think that they only have to do one thing. But really, purpose, you can serve multiple purposes, but you were created to do one thing. Now, so the question is, what were you created to do? And I don't believe you're going to get all of those answers in this video, but I do believe in my goal here is to inspire you to think about who can you really become and to get along this journey. Because the thing is, you can be firing in 100 different cylinders, but until you lock in your aim at something, right? Before you set your target for something, right? You're not gonna succeed. You're not gonna hit that target if you have no target. So my goal is to inspire you to identify the target and to tell you the target that you're trying to hit. You're not going to hit it within a day. It's going to take you some time to get it right. It's going to be frustrating. The journey is tough. But what I am saying to you today is that the journey is worth it. Growing up, I went through a bunch of different things. I went through a bunch of different struggles. I had a lot of different anxieties. I had a lot of negative thoughts. But through all of that, I'm still here today to tell you that the greatest movement that you ever see take place is not the movement that happens on TV. It's not the movement like a We Dine Together. It's not the movement like the civil rights movement, the greatest movement, the greatest change, the greatest difference that you can ever see take place is the change that takes place in you. And simply, I came here to tell you today that now is the time. Not tomorrow, not the day after, not the next week, but now is the time for you to start being all that you were created to be. This is the place. You don't need to go anywhere else. You don't need to go to some fancy university or have some crazy degree. And you are the one. Like, I believe that you already have everything you need. Yes, do you need some more connections? Yeah, I believe so. Do you need some more money? Yeah, I believe so. But right now, you are your best asset. There's a lot of things that you can do. And again, I believe the reason why most people aren't successful is because they don't believe that. They believe that they need something else. They believe that they have to go find another answer. They need to find another solution. But I'm here to just tell you, work what you got. It might not be much, but work what you got. Like my family and I, one of the things that we do every single night is we play Uno. And one of the things I learned from playing Uno is when me and my family are playing Uno, it's not always very friendly. But what I learned from playing Uno is that it's not about the cards that I have. Because sometimes, like, I'll have some cards and it would be a horrible hand, but I can maneuver a certain way. I can watch what people are doing. I can be strategic with my cards and I can end up winning the game. And then what can happen is I can have the best cards, and I think I'm about to win. And the next thing I know, my daughter says Uno and she wins and I'm upset, right? But what I learned about Uno, it's less about the cards that you get, or any card game at that. It's less about the cards that you get. Now, is the cards important? Of course it is. But it's less about the cards that you get, and it's more about what do you do with those cards. So in your life, I don't know the cards that you've been handed. Maybe you've been handed cards that were pretty difficult and you feel like you can't win. I'm here to tell you that's not true. I'm here to tell you that there's so much on the inside of you. And maybe you've had a good set of cards, but because you've had those good set of cards, you've been complacent. You haven't been willing to move. You haven't been willing to do something different. I believe for both of you, for both of those people listening, or maybe you're listening to this and you're not really sure. You're not really sure that the cards that you were dealt, like you're not really sure what to make of it. I'm still telling you that there's so much that you can do. Again, growing up, I didn't have the best cards, but I've been featured on CBS. I've been featured on ABC. I've been featured on all of these different news channels. I was a national spokesperson for Three Musketeers. I run an organization that's helping out over 1,600 churches. We Dine Together has scaled all across the United States. I am consistently seeing movement. I have clients that in under a year, they're reaching over 100 million people, right? So around me, I'm seeing all of these movements take place. But here's what I had to come to the realization that, again, the greatest movement that will take place is not the movements that I'm seeing around me. The greatest movement that will take place is the movement that I see on the inside of me. So again, I think the first phase in everything that I said is don't put a limit on yourself. Don't put a period where God put a comma. There's so much that you can do, but more importantly, there is so much that you can be. There is so much that you can become. But what you have to do is you have to be willing, right? You have to be willing to say, hey, I'm going to be the one in my family to make a difference. I'm going to be the one in my community to make a difference. I'm going to be the one in my friend group to make a difference. I'm not going to wait for anybody else. Like, I will be the one. Like, I will be the one to change my family tree. I will be the one to leave a lasting impact. I will be the one to leave a legacy for my children. I will be the one to help my community. I will be the one to uplift others. I will be the one to help the elderly. I will be the one to help the socially isolated or lonely. So I don't know what that is for you, but I want you to start thinking through that. Like, what will you be the one for? Because again, You have a thumbprint because you were created to leave a different imprint on this earth. So if you want to summarize my story was how I went from move to movement. And then I realized that, again, the greatest movement that took place was not the We Dine Together movement. It's not the organizations that I was a part of. The greatest movement that took place in my life is a movement that took place within me. When I learned to do these things, when I learned to move out, when I learned to move up, when I learned to move forward, when I learned to move on. So now I'm going to teach you on this idea of how to become a movement. And the first way that you become a movement is you have to be willing to move. You see, every single thing that we see on this planet, every single thing that we see on this earth, it's in constant movement. The planets, as we know them, as we see them, they're moving. Water, when it's frozen, even though the water's frozen, it's still moving. It's still going. It's not stagnant. The clouds, again, they're moving. Everything that we know, even if we can't see it, it's moving. Now, the question is, if everything around your life is in movement, it's in motion, why are you not? Why are you stuck? Why will you not move? So if you want to be a movement, if you want to see a change take place in your life, if you want to make a difference, if you want to leave an impact, then you have to be willing to move. And again, I believe that now is the time. This is the place. You are the one. You have to be willing to move. So now here are the 4 moves that I believe you need to make. And the thing about these 4 moves is they are going to work for you in every single area of your life. And as I'm saying these, I want you to identify which one of these seasons are you in. The first one is moving out, right? Now, for different people, that can mean different things. So maybe, but the first thing is that applies to mainly everybody. The first thing is moving out of your comfort zone, right? Nothing good will ever take place, or nothing great will ever take place in your comfort zone. So my question for you is, what area in your life do you need to move out in? Maybe it's moving out of your comfort zone. Maybe you're listening to this and you're in college. Maybe it's moving out of your parents' home. Maybe it's moving out in a certain way of thinking, right? But we all have to move out at some point. And when we move out, when we step outside of our comfort zone, something begins to happen, right? We move out of our comfort zone, and it's not an easy thing to do. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not saying this is easy. But when we move out of our comfort zone, we'll see things, they will happen very slowly. Like, let's say if you move out of your comfort zone and you start a business. Well, you're not going to get 100 clients week 1, right? I would love that to happen for you, but it's going to be tough. There's going to be some challenges, but you have to move out. You have to move out of your comfort zone because, again, if you want to go to your destiny, you have to break up with your history. And as you're driving the car of your life, you can't spend that life consistently looking at the rear view. You have to look forward. Now, yes, you can look side to side to maneuver, to decide how are you going to maneuver through life, but you have to be looking forward. So in order for you to become a movement, the first thing you have to do is you have to move out. Now that you moved out, the next thing that you have to do is you need to move up, right? So maybe for you, you moved out in a certain level of thinking that you don't think how you used to, but now you need to move up. And maybe moving up for you is gaining some new skills. Maybe you started that business and you started the business. You didn't really know what you're doing. You got out of your comfort zone, but maybe now you need to take some time to study. Maybe you need to learn the game. Maybe you need to get around some mentors. And the best place to move up is move up in your thinking. See, let me tell you what happens when you elevate your life. When you elevate your thinking. When you elevate your thinking, when you elevate your mindset, you elevate your will set. When you elevate your thinking, you elevate your life. So when your mind changes, your life begins to change. One of the things that you'll probably hear me say when I speak is like, again, the same thing with that card analogy. It's not about the outcomes, right? It's about your outlook. You can't control the outcomes, but one of the things that you need to work to control is your outlook. How do you see a situation? What do you think about a situation? How do you see yourself? What do you think about yourself? Right? If you think that you can't achieve anything, if you think you're not worth it, if you think you couldn't possibly do something, if you think you can't possibly make a difference, then my friend, you're never going to, right? So again, when you elevate your thinking, you elevate your life. And that goes back to what I said before. Like you have to accept where you are. Like let me just say that. You have to accept where you are and who you are. But you have to be expectant for where you're going and who you can become. So that's the second move. The first move is to move out. And for most people, that just simply means you have to move out of your comfort zone. The second thing is to move up. And for most people, what that's going to mean is you have to move up in your thinking, because when you elevate your thinking, you elevate your life. Now, the third move that I believe you need to make is you need to move forward. So now at this point, and again, I believe this really happens in seasons. So now at the point that, you got out of your comfort zone, you started doing the thing, you started learning, now things are starting to move slowly. But at this point is a lot of where people quit. From the time of you moving up to you moving forward, you don't quit. I know it's going to get tough. Sometimes it's going to feel like not a lot is happening, but that's when you just have to keep pushing. That's when you have to keep being consistent. That's when you have to just keep working hard, right? I've had a lot of things in my life that haven't happened as quickly as I wanted them to, but I kept going. I was consistent. And I've seen something amazing happen in my life. Now there's some other things in my life where I just gave up, right? If I'm honest. And sometimes I think to myself, like, what would my life look like right now if I didn't give up? What would my life look like if I just kept being consistent, right? So that's what I mean by move forward. Like you can't stop where you are. You have to keep moving forward. One of my favorite things is an airplane. When an airplane takes off into the sky, an airplane doesn't take off with the wind, but an airplane actually takes off against the wind. So the first thing an airplane has to do is the airplane has to move out. And as it's moving out slowly, right? But then it has to move up. When it moves up against the wind. Are we following me? When that airplane moves up against the wind, now it's in the sky. It can't just stop or go back down. But the airplane, to sustain its flight, to sustain everything that it's carrying, it has to move forward. It can't just go back. It has to move forward. So in your life, if you think of yourself as an airplane, you have to move out. And then the next thing is you have to move up. But here's the thing about moving up. You're not moving up with the wind. An airplane, it takes off against the wind. And maybe you're in a season right now, you feel like there's a lot of wind in your life. You feel like there's a lot of things not working. You feel like there's a lot of things not going your way. Well, that's what's going to help you take off, my friend. And when you take off, that's not the time to quit, but that's the time to keep moving forward. And then the last move that I believe you need to make is you have to be willing to move on. I can't tell you the amount of times or the amount of stories I heard where a person and even companies didn't move on in time. Now, sometimes you have to realize, and there's some tension here. Sometimes you have to realize that there's certain things in your life that they're not working in that season. And that's not something that I can give to you. That's not an answer that I can provide for you. It's something that you just have to sense yourself, or it's a decision that you just have to make yourself. That there's going to come a point in your life where you've been moving forward, but you're going to sense that now it's time to move on. You're going to sense that now what was working in the past is not necessarily going to work tomorrow. And at that point, you have to be willing to move on. Maybe that's moving on from your expectations of how you thought it should be done. Maybe it's moving on from an old system that you had. Maybe it's moving on. Let me get into your business right now. Maybe it's moving on from a relationship that's not serving you. Maybe it's moving on from a workplace that's not really the best option for you in this season. Again, I can't tell you what that is for you, but I just know at some point we all have to move on. I'll give you an example from my life. So when I was in high school, we launched this club called We Dine Together. And when we launched this club, it was due to all of the things that we were seeing happening around the country. We saw suicide rates going up. We saw depression going up. We saw loneliness going up. We saw isolation going up. All of these things were on the increase. And I thought to myself, I said, there's all of these organizations out there doing all of these, like this awesome work. But what's happening with these numbers? They should be declining. So that was the original intent why we created We Dine Together. Like, we wanted to create a space that no matter what you look like, no matter what you talk like, no matter what you dress like, we wanted to create a space where you're not just accepted, but you're actually celebrated, just who you are. Right? Now, that doesn't mean I necessarily agree with everything that you're doing. That doesn't mean I agree with your lifestyle. That doesn't mean I agree with your beliefs. But I can still celebrate the fact that you are a human being and I'm a human being. And yes, we have our differences, but when we come together, we can do some pretty awesome things. Now, once we started that club, what happened is on the days when we weren't meeting in the classroom, and we would go back out into the courtyard and we would sit with people who didn't have anybody to sit with. Now, long story short, what happened from that was that CBS heard it, and ABC heard it, and a bunch of different national news stations came out. And pretty quickly, at a very young age, I began to receive a lot of notoriety. People started to start asking me to come speak all over the place. And that was a season of my life, and that season was awesome, right? And then I brought my organization into another organization that was doing incredible work. Now, from the time that I moved out of my comfort zone, I moved up and I moved forward. I had to realize there was also a time for me to move on. And for me, it was moving on from how I thought it should be done or how I think this needs to work, right? And I had to be able to move on from that. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that I let it go, right? But it means that I let go some of my expectations, some of my desires, so the whole thing, the whole movement can flourish even more. So again, for you, I don't know what season you are in right now, but I want you to think to yourself, is this a season where maybe you have to move out? Or maybe you already did that, you're out of your comfort zone. And maybe it's a season where you have to move up. Or maybe it's a season where you have to move forward. Or maybe it's a season that you have to move on. But I don't know, but yes, you have a move to make. And the only way that you are going to see a movement take place in your life is if you are willing to move. Now, I understand some of these things that I'm talking about. It's not easy. And maybe you're going to have to watch this video twice. Maybe you're not going to get all of this the first time. But I share with you all of these to say that I believe in you. Like, I probably don't even know you yet. I probably never met you. Maybe I have met you at one of my events or an event that I was speaking at. But I believe that there is so much you can do. And the reason why I believe that there's so much you can do, because there is so much that I have done. And people would not expect, to be honest with you, I could barely do math. If I'm writing something, I sometimes got to spell check it with my wife, right? Like, I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I'm not always the wisest guy in the room, but I've always been the guy that was willing to move. I was always the guy that was willing to get outside of my comfort zone. I was always the guy that was willing to move out. I was the guy that was willing to move up. I am the guy that's willing to move forward. Until this day, I'm the guy that's willing to move on. Again, I'm not a perfect person, but I am a progressing person. And I realize that in my story that I was a movement. In the same way that an airplane is carrying something, I'm carrying something on the inside of me. And the thing that I'm carrying, it requires me to just keep going, to keep moving, to make a difference on the journey, wherever I am, with whatever I have. So that's the same thing that I believe about you. Is like you have a movement on the inside of you. And if you want to take that movement to the next level, here's one thing that you can consider doing. One of the things that I'm offering now is I'm offering coaching. Now, I'm not accepting everybody, but if you go to denisestamon.com/you movement, there's a form there. And you can share with me a little bit about what you want to do or what you're already doing. And we'll go through a process, but we're not going to accept everybody. There is a cost associated. But the idea with that coaching is, again, we want to continue to create more movements. We want to, and when we talk about movements, we're talking about not just organizations, but we're talking about people. So if you feel like there's something on the inside of you that you want to do, a change that you want to make, an impact that you want to have, maybe it's an organization or maybe it's a business. I want you to go to denisestamon.com, denisestamon.com/you movement. And you fill out that form, and someone from my team will reach back out to schedule a time to speak, right? Again, we're not accepting everybody because we really want to go deep and we want to see more movement flourish. And we're going to help you everything from start to finish, from ideation to the website to the press, right? We're going to help you do all of it. This is for the people that they're ready to move out. They're ready to make a move. So there is a financial commitment. Now, maybe you're listening to this and you just want more content, right? I want to encourage you, just stay tuned on. Let me know what you think about this video. But the last thing is I want to leave you with this. And when I heard this, it changed my life forever. It was this quote that you can count the number of seeds in an apple, but you cannot count the number of apples in a seed. And see, what you have to realize is that your life right now, where you are a seed. And the fact is that when you are a seed, sometimes you're going to think that dirt is being thrown on you. Sometimes you're going to have some storms, some stormy days. But when you are a seed, you realize that that dirt that's being thrown on you is soil. And that storm that you're going through is the water that you need and the environment that you need for you to grow, for you to flourish, for you to become all that you have meant to be. So maybe you're going through a tough time right now. Maybe you're going through a storm. Maybe you feel like just dirt is coming your way, but I want to encourage you that you are a seed. And remember that you can't count the number of seeds. You can count the number of seeds in an apple, but you can't count the number of apples in a seed. Now, the question is, what are you going to plant today? What seeds are you going to plant today? Is it a seed of kindness, generosity? Is it a seed of impact, legacy? What is that seed that you're going to plant today? Because if you plant an apple seed, you're not going to get oranges. And that's why I believe that you are a movement. There is so much that you can do. There's an impact that you can have. And again, I believe that now is the time. This is the place. You are the one to be that movement. And the greatest movement that you're going to see is not the movement that takes place on the TV. It's not the movement that takes place in the White House, but it's the movement that takes place in your house. So again, if you're listening to this, I want to invite some of you to go deeper with me. Just visit denisestamon.com/you movement. I want to invite you to go deeper, to get some coaching, to get some accountability into your life. And what's going to happen is when you get that accountability, and when you get that accountability with a community as well, you're going to be able to do these things for yourself, but not by yourself. Again, I believe the best is ahead of you. It's not behind you. Now is the time. This is the place. You are the one to be that which you've always been, a movement. Thank you so much for tuning into this.